Hi there, welcome to this Java interview guide from in 28 minutes. In this series of videos, we are covering a lot of interview questions on different Java topics. As you already know, in 28 minutes is famous for all its interview question videos. We have interview question videos on Lambda expressions, multi-threading, collections, exception handling, and also we have a lot of different videos on JUnits, design patterns, Eclipse, Mockito, Spring MVC and stuff. In this series of videos, we are covering interview questions on OOPS, Advanced Java, Servlets, JSPs, design patterns, JDBC, J2EE, Maven, and Eclipse. All the information about different questions that we would discuss is on the GitHub repository. github.com in 28 minutes. Let's move on to the next topic, which is JSPs. So in this quick video, we'll look at a few interview questions which are related to the JSPs. So as for all the videos, what we would do is we would kind of use our Java JE web application in 28 minutes as a reference, and the code here is also linked from here. So if you click this, it goes to a GitHub repository where there's a lot of code. So we'll use that as an example as part of this JSPs thing as well. And this is a video you can watch to completely do the JSP servlets thing step by step. So if you are a beginner, I'll really recommend to you to watch that video and then come back here. This is a discussion on the interview question, so we'll go very fast and very quickly cover all the important things about JSPs. The first thing is, why do we need JSPs, right? So we have servlets, right? In servlets, I can directly write to the output. So I can do an response.get writer and I can write to it. So why do we really need a JSP? So if you look at this specific JSP page, so it contains the typical structure of a HTML, right? So you'd see a lot of HTML code in here, and you would see that this is not something which would be easily generatable from Java code, right? So if I want to generate this from Java code, then I have to out.println write this, out.println do this, substitute by this variable, out.println do this, out.println do this, out.println do this. So you can see that that kind of code becomes very tedious. So you'd see that your view logic, so whatever things that you'd see in here, like show error message here, show to do name here, add this to the link. This is what we call as view logic. So this view logic is very difficult to generate from a servlet because it's just string concatenation for most of the time. So you just take the string, concatenate here and give this here. So that's where the JEE came up with this concept of a JSP. So instead of writing all this string concatenation logic in a servlet, what we can do is we can write it in a JSP, and then we'll work out a way where we can actually convert this JSP to a servlet and execute it. That's where the concept of JSP came in. So the JSP is used to display content which is rendered on the browser. So you have HTML content which is rendered on the browser. So we JSP is something which is very near to that, and JSP makes the HTML content more dynamic in the sense that you can take values from the database, make them available in the request or the session scope, and then in the JSP you can render them. So I'm looping around the to-dos and showing them in here. So here I'm using something called EL. We'll discuss about EL little later, but this is kind of what we want to achieve through JSPs. You can see that this kind of code is much more readable. So you can easily understand this because there is no Java code in here. In a typical good JSP, you would not see any Java code. All that you would see is a few tag libraries, probably a few expression language things, and all that you would see is most of it is HTML. So the JSPs help us to separate the view content from the action kind of a flow. So action kind of flow, everything is handled by the servlets. The JSP, what data we need, that would be got by the JSPs. I mean, that would be got by the servlet, probably talking to a business service, and then it redirects to the JSP, which just takes care of how to display things on the screen. So I get a list of items, give it to the JSP, JSP knows how to display it. So the servlet is worried about calling a business service, get me the list of to-dos, and list to-dos is the one which is concerned with showing them on the page. That's where JSP fits into the entire web application architecture. The next thing we want to talk about is the JSP lifecycle. So as we discussed earlier, JSP is nothing but a servlet. So JSP is no different from any other servlet that you would see. What are the typical things that are needed when I initialize a JSP? So one of the things is like JSP is a servlet, so it has an initialization part and a service part and a destroy part. This is very similar to any servlet, right? So you have an initialization of the JSP, the service part, and the destroy. So as with a servlet, so when does the servlet gets initialized? The servlet gets initialized when there is a first call to that particular servlet. With the JSPs, however, there in certain web servers and application servers, you can do something called pre-initialization. So basically, the initialization of a JSP involves a little bit more than typical initialization of a servlet, because in a initialization of a JSP, the first step is to convert the JSP to a servlet, and then is the real JSP init method call. So similar to the init service and destroy in the servlets, in the JSP you have JSP init, JSP service, and the JSP destroy methods. However, before I come to the JSP init, whatever todo.jsp, the list todo.jsp that we have created a list todos.jsp. What the web server or the application server does, it converts this list todo.jsp into a Java file. For example, so if you look at this particular thing which I have in here, if you looked at the work Tomcat folder, so I'm running this application in Tomcat. So what Tomcat did was it created a todo.jsp.java. So this todo.jsp.java, I created the list todos.jsp.page. What the Tomcat did, it created the Java file for it. Actually, the one which we are looking at is add todo.jsp. Similar to that, there is a list todos.jsp. I mean, any of the JSP files that before they are run, they are converted into a Java file. And you can also see the compiled class file for that Java file. I'm opening up a Java file to see what's inside. So what the web server does is, if you set pre-compilation on, it creates the Java file and the class file at the start of this server. So when this server is loaded up, it converts the JSP into .class file. So what does this contain? This contains JSP init, JSP destroy, and the JSP servlet service. And if you go in further, you would see that all the code that we are writing in the JSP. So all the code, what JSP does, what the web server does is it converts and writes all that stuff using out.write. So instead of I writing out.write and all this stuff, what the what the web server does is it writes this for me. And that's really good, right? That's awesome, because I don't need to write out.write 100 times. So I'm letting the web server take care of that and do the conversion for me. So what we have been seeing until now is the fact that this conversion is done by the web server for me. So the web server converts the .java to JSP, and then it can be compiled and the initialization happens. So when the first call to JSP comes and is ended, the initialization would be done by then. So by then the init method would be called, and from there on, second, third to how many thousands of requests that the JSP receives, the service method is called. And once it completes execution, the destroy method is called. That's typical life cycle of a JSP. So the typical initialization of a JSP involves a little bit more, because it needs JSP converts first the JSP needs to be converted to the Java file, and then it needs to be compiled, and then the JSP init method is called. Sometimes these steps can be done as part of the server initialization as well. So instead of on the first call of the JSP, on load of the server itself, this might happen, and then when the first call comes, the init method is called and the service method is called. From second call on, the only thing which will be called is the JSP service method. So this is, I hope, a very good introduction to how JSP works in the background. So you can see all that stuff live in here. The next question is, what is the difference in the roles played by JSP in Model 1 and Model 2 architectures? So before that, what is Model 1, Model 2 architecture? What we have for you is, like, if you go a little up in here to the references, like this is github.com in 28 minutes interview guide, and that's where we are in the JSP section. If you go further up, there is something called useful interview resources, and as part of it is one of the presentations we used as part of our code on Java EE enterprise patterns. So let's go ahead and reload this. I'm having a little bit of problem loading that up. Let's see if this time it loads up fine. Ah, good. That's good. So it's loading up. So it's loading up. Actually, this is a great course on Java EE design patterns. You'd find a discount code for that course. I mean, the complete course is on Java EE pattern. It completely describes all the patterns which are there in Java EE. So if you go there, you'd see that this course covers a lot of things. Let's expand this. So it covers the basic evolution of Java EE application architecture, Model 1 architecture, Model 2, MVC, and then you will also talk about the basic patterns in Java EE, right? Front controller, view, helper, composite view, intercepting filter, facade, a lot of stuff. And also it has an introduction to all the common terminologies that we use as part of JEE, right? I mean, JEE is such a vast thing: JPA, JDBC, ORM, JNDI, EJB. Wow. So all that is in here. So this course is available just for $10, and I mean, this is a coupon which gives you 75% off. So all that you need to do is go and click that link in here. So over here, so in JSPs, also in the recommended courses part, you'd see that in here, Java EE patterns. There are other courses also, the JSP servlets. If this is too quick for you, then you can do the JSP servlet course, which would help you to quickly understand. That's a course which has reviews of 4.6 out of 5, which is really good. And if you are interested in Spring MVC or Maven, you have the discount codes down here as well. So up to you. I mean, right now we are focused on our interview questions, so let's get to them. So let's focus on what is the difference in roles of JSP in Model 1 and Model 2 architectures. Let's see if the presentation has loaded up. Yep, it has. So if I go further in, so what you are seeing on the screen is a Model 1 architecture. In the modern world architecture, we didn't have servlets at all. So what we used to have is, from the browser we redirect to a JSP, and from that JSP we render the HTML back. Once the user clicks a button, it goes directly through the JSP. So there was no servlet concept at all. So in that sense, in the Model 1 architecture, JSP was the fundamental thing. JSP was the crux around which everything revolved. Later, JSP, like Java EE, came with this concept called servlets. From then on, the concepts changed. So in the Model 2 architecture, the servlet is the one which gets the request from the browser. So from the browser, you will not redirect directly to the JSP. What you would send to is a servlet. The servlet then would talk to the view, get the content, and return it back. So now the servlets became the center of attention from the point of the browser. The Model 2 is better architecture because servlet can have all the logic to get the data, and view is responsible only for the view. However, in the Model 1 architecture, JSP was responsible for everything, right? So it's responsible for getting the data from the database. It's responsible for rendering it on the screen. So you get a lot of logic mixed up. So you write a lot of Java code in the JSPs, and then it's very difficult to maintain. So however, in the Model 2 architecture, we had clear separation. So servlets are responsible for getting the getting the data from the database or saving the things back to the database, whereas the view is just responsible for showing it. So the JSPs are responsible for showing it. So the servlets get the model, it's rendered, and then the view would take the model and show it on the screen. So that's how the responsibilities of JSPs are really different in Model 1 and Model 2 architectures. Next, what are the different types of comments in JSP? Do we have an example for that? The comments in JSPs are of two kinds. One is this, how do we call it? With the exclamation mark, with the percentage mark. The difference between this and this is the fact that this is a HTML comment. This is not really a JSP comment. This is a HTML comment. So whatever comment you put in this way, whenever you run this JSP and see the HTML, you'll be able to see this comment. However, this is a JSP comment. So whenever you put something in here, this will not be visible on the browser. So when I do a right click view source on the browser, this will not be visible at all. Both these things will not be directly visible on the screen unless you do a right click view source. If you do a right click view source, then you can see this comment, but you'll not be able to see this comment. What are scriptlets, expressions, and declarations? Let's quickly get to that. So what is a scriptlet? Scriptlet is just a piece of Java code that you write in your JSP. So here you see that I'm writing a lot of Java code, right? So out.println, new.date.toString. These are what are called scriptlets. So you have Java code in here which is being used to print something to the output. These are what are called scriptlets. The thing about writing Java code in a JSP is the fact that you get used to writing a lot of Java code, and there is nothing that prevents you from writing something which saves you to the database. So here I can go ahead and say, get the service and save it to the database, talk to a JDBC or something of that kind. That's the reason why in modern application development, it's not recommended to write any scriptlets. So the use of scriptlets is not really considered to be a good practice. So as far as we are concerned, I mean, in all our courses, we don't really teach anything related to scriptlets at all, because I really hate scriptlets. I've worked in applications where scriptlets have led to a lot of maintainability issues. So things like, I mean, this is kind of the first and last time I hope you are seeing a scriptlet. I mean, it's very important to understand what a scriptlet is. So you can see that scriptlet is Java code, but it's not I don't really recommend using it at all. So this is a scriptlet expression. So basically you write a is equal to and write a expression so that that gets printed directly to the output. So request.get attribute name. So what happens is this gets printed as part of your HTML content or the HTML output. So this is a scriptlet, this is a scriptlet expression, and we looked at the comments. So the expression language, on the other hand, is something like this. So instead of using a scriptlet, so instead of doing request.get attribute name, I can do request scope dot name. So dollar open brace request scope dot name, dollar session scope session attribute name. So this is what is called a EL. So you can get things from the request scope, you can get things from the session scope. One of the examples here is request scope dot best batsman list. The servlet put best batsman list into the model, and we are using it in here. So we the servlet put this as a request attribute, and we are able to access it from here. Similarly, we can access from maps and things like that as well. What are JSP implicit objects? So if you look at let's go to the servlet, I mean scriptlet that we had earlier. So if I just put a control space in here, you'd be able to see that I can use a few variables directly. So request, response, page context, out, config, application. All these stuff are what are called JSP implicit objects. So these are objects which are made implicitly available by the JSP in your JSP. So I can use out dot something or request dot set something, response dot something. So those kind of things are called implicit objects. The thing about implicit objects is the fact that they are also available inside the expression languages as well. So you have the expression language implicit objects are request scope, session scope, and things like that. What are the disadvantages of scriptlets? We already discussed that. We write a lot of Java code that gets that leads to a lot of unmaintainable code. So that's about scriptlets. We already looked at expression language. We looked at expression language implicit objects as well. So we used a couple of them as well here. Request scope, session scope. These are implicit objects of the EL. And what is JSTL? So JSTL is basically the tag library which is present inside JSP. So JSTL is directly available with with Java EE, Java standard tag, JSP standard tag library. So you can set a value. So I'm setting a dummy name to a dummy value, and you can do a cout $dummy name. So basically what we are doing is, instead of writing Java code, we are actually writing something using JSTL. This is not something which I would really recommend you to do. JSTL libraries are mostly used in case of if. So if I have a if condition in a JSP, or when I want to write a switch in a JSP, in these kind of situations, I would go ahead and use a JSTL library. Here I'm doing a C for each. This is another JSTL library which we are making use of. The other things which are present as part of the JSTL are the formatting libraries. You can look at them in here. So you have a C set that we already looked at. Format number is one more. So I'm formatting something into a specific format, and you can format number into any things that you would want to format. So there are examples of how to do that in here. So you can also use a format to set locale, and also you can do a format date. So these are the different formatting things that are present in JSTL. The next thing that we want to discuss is what would happen if an exception is thrown from a JSP. The important thing about this is, if there is no filter, then the exception would be directly shown on the screen. And that's one of the reasons why we don't want to we don't want to write a lot of Java code in here. All the code that you write in the JSP should be as safe as possible, and it's better to use things like tag libraries so that you would have proper exception handling around them. we can look at one of the classes which was extracted earlier. So if we can see the try catch, so you can see that it just throws a servlet exception. So if there's an exception in this, what would happen is at the end a servlet exception is thrown. So you'd either handle that and show an error page to the user, or nothing, like it would directly show the exception trace to the user. Next, we would look at a few JSP best practices. I think the most important best practice about JSP is the fact that you should not have any business logic in your JSP. JSPs are just views. So all the things that are related to your view, you can do that in your JSP, not your business logic. So it's we recommend that you don't do any scriptlets at all. As far as possible, restrict yourself to the tag libraries, use them very well, and use expression language well. So you do not use any scriptlets in your JSPs. Those are the two important things that we would recommend. The other thing is make sure that the JSPs are as small as possible. I've seen a lot of people struggle with with the large compilation size of JSPs. Because these JSPs are translated to Java files, and there is a restriction on how big your Java files can be, do not have very large JSPs. If you have large JSPs, then sometimes I've seen things like memory, the size of the JSP becoming so big that it's running out of memory and things like that, especially when the JSP is dynamically generated. So there you go. The idea behind this interview questions thing was just to introduce you to all the things that are there around JSPs. I know it's very fast because the intention was not really to cover everything that is, was not to teach you in step-by-step detail. That's what we would typically do in our courses, to go slowly and go step by step. The idea behind this interview thing was to kind of be like a quick refresher. So if somebody is an expert at it, but they want to remind themselves of what or all the things that need to be learned around the JSPs, then this video would serve as a quick refresher to them. If you are a fresher and if you are really new, then we would really recommend you to go through the courses, try and understand them before you try and get into the interview questions part of it. So good luck until the next time. Bye bye. This video is part of a series of 25 videos which we have created, and all the links to those videos are present in the GitHub repository, github.com/in28minutes/interview-guide. So you can find the link in the description of the video as well, and you can watch all the other videos as well. One of the facts that we really believe at in 28 minutes is all these interview guides are useful once you are an expert at something, or once you have a little bit of experience with that. So there are a lot of courses that we have: Java EE, Patterns, Spring MVC, JSP Servlets, Maven. These are all really good courses. We also have a complete 5-hour course on Java interview questions and answers. It's almost 6 hours of videos on different things related to Java. So those are the things I think you'll find interesting after watching this video, and if you liked it, I'm sure you'll like the other courses as well. So give them a try, see if you like them. You can make the best use of this Git repository which is present in here. Good luck with all your interview preparation. Until next time, this is bye from Ranga at in 28 minutes.